Okay, here we are. All right.
Ah,
So, hello. So, I am Arian from Project She Went for Her Dreams and founder of the Mentor Circle. Today, I have with me one of my favorite people and a fellow mentor in the Mentor Circle. Is Tumi Soyinka is joining us for today's call, and she's going to tell us a little bit about her journey and her career and a little bit of advice and tips on her career journey to help us out. So, without further ado, hi, Tumi. Thank you for joining us today.
honestly, thank you so much for having me, Ariane. I'm very excited about our conversation and super excited to be a mentor as part of
Yeah,
the circle.
same here. So glad to have you part of the team. So let's kick it off here. So tell us a little bit about your journey. So you work at L'Oreal and you head up the Mizani account there, which is super exciting, and I want to hear more. So tell us a little bit how you landed in that role and sort of the steps it took to get there.
It was the biggest mishmash ever. Some people, go to school, they study a certain thing, and that certain thing puts them in a specific industry, a specific role, and it's all carved out perfectly. Mine did not work out that way. So right now, to your point, I head marketing globally for a beautiful brand at L'Oreal called Mizani, which is all about servicing women who have textured hair, like me, like you. However, my background is actually music. My love and my passion growing up was always songwriting. I would, I somewhere have piles of notebooks filled with songs that I had written and composed, and I decided to take that further and study it. So my first degree was in music technology because I had all these beautiful words on paper and I was composing with piano because I was a pianist. But I wanted to know what it looks like to produce music. So I learned that for 3 years, got my degree down, loved it, did a lot of studio work, recorded an album, got the technical side down, sound engineering, all of it. And then I was like, okay, great, now I need to learn the business of music. I don't necessarily want to be the artist in front of the camera. I want to be the person behind the camera, producing. So I actually did a master's degree or took a master's degree in music business management at the University of Westminster back in London, which is where I was born.
Okay.
And that was incredible. It gave me a lot of insight into music law, music finance, all those different functions. And that was what got me into Universal Music. So I worked in the record industry with Universal for just under 5 years, where I got my first dose of marketing, my first touch point with what it looks like to market a product. And for me at the time, the product were musicians, artists, bands that we would sign, and we would, essentially create them into this entity that would sell millions of records worldwide. So I loved it. It was a bit of a rush for me. Never thought that I would ever do anything other than music. But I randomly got a call from a friend of mine who worked for a recruitment agency that serviced L'Oreal in the UK back in those times. And she'd gotten a call from L'Oreal saying, we're looking for a new candidate for this specific role, this brand called Mizani. She needs to have, or she or he needs to have these types of credentials or criteria. And for some reason, she thought of me. Like, as L'Oreal was speaking about this person, she was like, I wonder if Tumi would be interested. Yeah. So she did. She reached out, and she prefaced it by saying, "Look, I know you're a music girl. I know you love your life at Universal, but I couldn't help but think about you for this role. Would you be interested?" The long and short of it, because we've got more questions to get through, but the long and short of it is I was open to the opportunity. And sent her my CV, or resume as we say here in the US, and the rest was history. Within 5 days, I had met with 7 different people within the organization at L'Oreal, and was made an offer to move, and I took it. I was scared about it because all I knew was music. I don't have a traditional marketing degree, didn't do an MBA. I didn't think I could do anything other than music. So I would say almost 10 years later, I'm still with L'Oreal, and I am still with Mizani. There's a reason why, of course. But yeah, that's essentially my trajectory. So I, worked on Mizani in the UK for about 5 years, and I am coming towards my 5th year actually here at Mizani in the US, but now with a global role, if that makes sense.
Right. I love your story so much because there's so many themes embedded in it, right? So it's sort of charting a course that it's like, okay, music is my thing. I'm going to immerse myself in this world, right?
Yeah.
And then sort of life hits you with a detour and opens up this opportunity that you hadn't thought of, hadn't planned for, but you were open. You were open to it. And that's singularly all you really needed to take that step forward and be curious, right? And to explore the role. And years and years later, here you are, and it's just something that you never planned for. And I just love that because, oftentimes when we're starting out in our career or we're building our path, we have this plan. It's like, okay, this is how it needs to be. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get degreed up, and this is what it's going to look like. And then life is like, oh, no, got other plans for you.
You thought you were going that way.
Yeah, so we're going to go this way now. But I love that. And I think that's, that openness to being a part of like how the journey opens up for you is part of like how we grow, right? Really expect the best we want out of our career.
Exactly.
What I love about what you do now is the marketing piece. And I want to talk a little bit about that. So when it comes to marketing and advocating for ourselves, right? And putting ourselves out there and marketing when it comes to marketing ourselves, right? So I'm sure that there's a lot of similarities when you're marketing a brand and you're marketing yourself, right? As a personal brand, right? Can you speak a little bit to, how do we start to kind of think of ourselves as a brand and to put ourselves out there and market ourselves in an impactful and effective way?
It wasn't until more recently, I would say, Ariane, if I'm honest, that I started to think more about personal branding. I am an introvert. I'm very internal. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about how to boost how to PR myself. I have had to be told by a number of managers that that's something you have to do. If you want to progress in your careers, like you have to elevate the conversation about yourself by PRing yourself, so that whenever you're not in the room, the people who are in the room are, your voice is being brought to the table without you even having to be there. And in order for you to be in a position or to get to a position like that, there's a lot of work that you have to do for yourself. So I think for me, I have more recently in the last, 3-4 years, really kind of started reading a lot more about, self-love, I guess, right? That's the biggest buzzword of the last 2 to 3 years. I almost dislike saying it because it just sounds like a trend, but for want of a better word or phrase, that's where I'm going to go. I think everybody knows what I mean when I say self-love. I think that until, and when I say self-love, I really mean, who am I? What are the things that I resonate with? What are my values? What are my morals? How do I take myself away from my day-to-day job where I am marketing products? And how do I kind of step back and figure out, like, what are the things that are important to me that I want people to know me for? And how do I take that step to, building my brand story around those things? So my biggest advice for people out there and what mentees can definitely expect from me, I hate to jump ahead, because I'm sure we're going to get to that, but it will be this whole conversation around self-worth, self-love, and diving into your own authenticity.
Yes.
I think the time when I really started to delve into my authenticity was back in the UK. I want to say, gosh, I don't know, 7 years ago, maybe, when I decided to go natural with my hair. And, you know, for some people it sounds very trivial, they don't get it, but there's a lot that goes on mentally.
Oh, yes.
You know, when you present yourself in a certain way. And I used to always wear the long flowing weaves, makeup, you know, every single day. I'm wearing a little today for you, Ariane, because this is video, so I've made an effort, but I don't on a day-to-day basis. And there was a time when I realized that I don't actually know what my natural hair looks like. Like, it's always been relaxed. It's always been braided up or in a weave or something. And I work for the world's largest beauty company, specifically within textured hair. I can't talk the talk if I'm not walking the walk. So I made the choice to just do the big chop, cut it all off, start from the beginning, and more to educate myself, but also to educate the people around me, because they saw me a specific way, treated me a specific way, probably because of the way that I looked. I, you know, was very tired of disappointed with hearing young women around me, cousins, young ladies who were, you know, trying to develop their professional skill set and their careers, who would come to me and say things like, Tumi, I've got a job interview next week. Should I be relaxing my hair for this interview? Should I get a wig? I'm really afraid that they will not accept me for this role because of my hair. Yeah. That was a thing. I was like, this has to stop. I can't keep walking around looking a certain way. I need to present my natural self. So with that comes confidence. I think with that, for me, came confidence. It gave me the interest and the intrigue and the motivation to stand up to things that were important to me, which was owning my authentic self. I think when I started to do that more, naturally came this whole brand building exercise. You know, people started to see me as someone that was strong, that was confident, that you know, didn't want to blend in with societal norms, for example. It's not like I'm going around doing this. I'm absolutely not. You don't have to walk around doing that to be, you know, to be a confident individual. But I just hope that the way that I present myself, I truly believe that the way that I have held myself and that the way that I kind of hold myself on a day-to-day basis has built my brand story in a way. And I hate to tie it back to looks. I work in beauty, so I do that a lot. But it's more than that when it comes to women of color.
Yeah. I love that so much, because I think I'm so glad that you brought that up, especially when it comes to how we present ourselves and being in our bodies and what it means to authentically own the attributes, like our hair, that make us who we are, and to do that unapologetically. And I 1000% agree. When I went through that transition of going natural, it was for the same reasons of just wanting to get to know myself again, my actual hair, and what it does, what does my curl pattern do, how do I now present myself in the world when I'm not relaxing it, when it's not up, when it's not, you know. And so it was it was almost sort of like a reintroduction to self, right? And then also training the people around you to see you like, this is actually me. I know you were used to that other version of me, and that other version was also you too, but there's a more authentic version that is truly myself, and that's the thing that I want you to get to know, right? Actually communicating that to people. And you know, that kind of brings me to my next question, especially for women of color and Black women in the workplace, right? And navigating that landscape, right? Navigating microaggressions and implied biases and things that oftentimes happen in the workplace, and you know, and managing that and having sort of the responsibility, right? You know, how much of it is our responsibility to train and teach other people, right? You know, and addressing certain insensitive comments that happen. And I think that this is the landscape that we are in right now, you know. And so it is sort of a messy conversation around how to be more diverse and how to be more inclusive and be more representative, you know, in the workplace and things like that. But I'm wondering in your experience, you know, as a woman of color in the office, you know, in the workplace, like how do you learn to navigate, you know, that landscape, and what has sort of worked for you?
I feel so many ways about this question, and I'm trying to think of the most concise way that I can deliver this communication.
It's a loaded question for sure.
Oh, it is, because, and you know, we follow each other on Instagram, and I shared some weeks ago, you know, on my Instagram stories, this whole communication around, is it our job as women of color or people of color to talk about, to answer a lot of the questions that people who aren't of color have? Is it our job to educate them? Is it our job to, like, is it really? And I feel split on this one, because in a way I've gotten to a point where I read this book recently called I always get this title mixed up, so I'll have to text it to you afterwards if I mess it up right now, but it's something along the lines of why I no longer talk to white people about race, by Rennie Edo-Lodge. She's a British Black journalist. Incredible book, so thought-provoking and provocative in its title. It's incredible. And it really made me think that, yeah, like every time I get asked questions about, you know, anything that is vaguely around our experience of women of color, and, you know, questions that are posed in ways that, you know, if we choose not to answer them, doesn't mean that we have evaded an opportunity to make, you know, white people feel better about themselves, to feel more educated about our experience. Like, should we feel that? Like, should we really have that ownership? What if I just don't feel like answering that question today because I've answered it 1,000 times? So I'm trying to keep it short and sweet, but it's one of those things where I could literally have I could speak about this for hours. But there is a level of education that needs to occur.
Agreed.
There absolutely is. You know, what I would say is we have the choice, and we should have the choice and the confidence to say, I'm not answering that today, because I know where this is going to go. And then there are times where it's like, I need to educate you on this point right now, because if I don't, and you walk away thinking that what you just said was okay, you're going to say it again to the same person in the same way, maybe even worse, an hour later, tomorrow, a month from now, and you're not going to get a favorable response. So I am going to educate you on this point right now. So I will say that, yes, I do have instances when that has happened. And, you know, when I say that has happened, it's, you know, a phrase has been communicated in a way that, yes, could be offensive. And perhaps, you know, someone like me who has thick skin didn't take offense to it, but somebody else in the room that doesn't, you know, that, you know, they've been alerted, you know, red flags are waving in their heads. I would like to take this chance to, like, you know, on a brand like mine, you know, again, Mizani is for, you know, women who have textured hair, and, you know, I work at Loreal, and a lot of our executives don't have textured hair, and they are men who are white, who don't live and breathe our experiences and what it means to braid our hair on vacation, why we do that, and why I decide to wear my hair, you know, in a unit one day, or natural like this, or in a twist, whatever. Like, they don't understand. It's not a case of I want to rock a, you know, a new look to impress my coworkers one day. It could purely be because of convenience. You know, I'm going on vacation, I don't want to deal with this, so I'm going to put it in braids. Like, there's a reason behind some of the choices we make. Right. So I do take the opportunity on leading the marketing for a brand like Mizani to share with my senior leadership, you know, the insights behind who this consumer is. Because I think that helps them ground themselves in some of the strategic decisions we make as a brand and as a business. Because ultimately we are a business, and, you know, senior leadership will always have questions, and they'll always pick apart, you know, our strategy, which is their job to do. But on a brand like ours, where we service women who look like us, because senior leadership don't look like us, it is my job to put the data in front of them, to have them sit with consumers, to ask them the questions that will help senior leadership understand the decisions we've made as a brand. That is absolutely a job that I do have to do. And yeah, of course, sometimes it can be a little draining, because I feel like sometimes we've already addressed this, we've already had this conversation, but they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
So absolutely, education is paramount, and you've got to understand that without educating people who are in senior positions about our experiences, they just won't know. They won't know how to handle, they won't know how to communicate in certain ways, they won't know that, certain phrases are actually, trigger phrases and, shouldn't necessarily be said in certain ways. So, yeah.
I 1,000% agree. And, to your point earlier about like, whose onus is it to educate? And sometimes, we can opt out of that, of that conversation. It's like, actually, I'm not going there today. And there are times where we are like, I can't let that comment pass. I have to you and not do it in a combative way, but in an educational way.
Exactly.
Okay, let's come to the table and have a conversation about why that comment was offensive and inappropriate. And so I do think that there's and we could save this for conversation part 2, because there's so much embedded in that, but it does get exhausting, as people of color, as women of color, to constantly have to have that conversation and do the heavy lifting. But we do need our allies and the non-minorities to also do their part and to ask the right questions and to ask what is the experience like for you? I don't know. That is why, we're having this conversation, and it's messy, there's no like blueprint for how to have the conversation. So I think we have to, go into it knowing that, it's going to feel messy and a little bit clunky, but that's how we get to the other side of this, So for all sakes and purposes, it is an ongoing conversation, but definitely there's an education piece that needs to happen for sure. So, which is why, we need mentorship, we need partners, to have these conversations with, and to hold the space, right, to navigate the workplace, and to have strategies and advice on like, how do I do this? How do I show up for this interview? How do I go into the workplace and really represent my brand in a way that feels authentic to me? So having said that, what piece of advice would you give someone coming into your field or coming into their career, that was your best thing that you've learned that you now want to share?
Don't be afraid to own your corner, okay? And for me, like, your corner could be your stage. I don't mean to, diminish it to a corner, but my point is, if you are passionate about something and it's that one thing, it doesn't have to be a million things, because I think a lot of people think that they have to be famous for everything. Let me take a step back. Whenever I hire young entrants as, to work within my team, and we have reviews and we discuss their career plans, one of the points that I always bring up is, think about what you want to be famous for. And, by famous, I just mean like, what is it that you want to be known for in this company? What is it that you want to be known for as part of eventually your brand building, the PR story around yourself? Like, pick a thing, pick your corner. And I say that because I grew up in a career where people wanted you to and still do want you to do tons of different things. Okay, like, don't just box yourself in a corner. Like, try working at that big brand, or try working in a big team, and get the big brand experience. I'm using that because that's very personal to me. I am not a big brand girl. I know I work at Loreal, but Loreal is a massive major corporation, and within Loreal you have a million different brands, okay? Large, medium, and small. And Mizani is a small, beautiful gem of a brand. And I have no issues being on a brand that is a niche brand because I see the potential of it. And I will only work for brands that I am passionate about, where I am the consumer. Because that's what works for me. I need to work somewhere. I find I resonate with roles and brands, I guess, that, where I'm actually the consumer. So my biggest piece of advice is find the thing that you want to be famous for, champion it in your corner. Don't be dissuaded by people who are telling you that you need to be doing more than just this. If this is the thing that you want to be known for, own it. Love it, embrace it, be passionate about it, find ways to communicate about it, find ways where you become the expert and specialist in that. So that's where I'm going. That's where I've been in a while. I do hear people saying things like, oh, you're still on Mizani. Like, what's next for you? Why does there need to be a next? Right. Why does there need to be, and there will be, I'm sure, when the time is right. But I am no longer being, what's the word? I'm no longer using those voices to determine that I need to make a move.
Right.
Like, I found my corner. I am a specialist in my corner. People see me as a specialist in that corner, and I'm happy to wave that flag. Right. So that's my biggest piece of advice. Find what you want to be famous for, champion your corner, and be the specialist that you want to be.
Yeah, I love that so much. Really taking ownership of what the value is that you have to bring to the table. I love that.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited that you're one of the mentors in the mentor circle. And
Me too.
I think the mentees are going to get so much rich advice and experience from working with you.
I'm excited.
I wanted to ask you, what would it be like for those who are listening, for those who are hearing your story, what would it be like for someone to work with you as their mentor? What could they expect from you?
I make them collaborative. I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned to have to be, if I'm honest. I don't think I'm naturally collaborative because I've always, I've always been the person that works great on her own, right? Like, I'm that introvert, put me here and I will sail. But one of the biggest things that I've learned with working with an incredible team, on Mizani, is finding right people to partner with, understanding what their strengths are, understanding where their challenges are, and vice versa, so we can lift each other together. That's what we do, and that's how my team works. We are an incredible team. So I think that the mentees can find that value in our partnership. There will be partnership. I love a conversation. So there will definitely be conversations that are not just about necessarily what it is they want to gain from our partnership and, what they're hoping to get from, a mentee-mentor relationship necessarily, but I want to know what's going on personally. Like, it's not always going to be, all right, let's talk business. It's going to be, all right, what's going on personally? Because I find that kind of digging deeper into what's happening outside of the world of work and career are a ton of worms and, things that actually lead to the things that we're going to be discussing on a more career-based level. So I just hope that people, that the mentees will find that valuable, because I think it's more about just getting to the crunch. It's more about, okay, let's kind of peel back the onion a little bit and let's find the root of the cause matter and figure it out together.
Yeah.
So partnership for sure.
Yeah. And it is about, it's not just career, it is life, right? Because they're all connected. How you do one thing is how you do everything. And
exactly.
Want to live like holistic lives, not just be known for our career and professional identity, but who we are at home, who we are, around friends and around our loved ones, and as leaders, in our spaces and in our communities, and really sort of having the consistency across the board and like how you show up. So I love that.
Yeah, and I think just to layer on top of that, like, wellness is spirituality. That's a whole thing, and I'm exploring that myself. So, I think that those will be that's another layer or another dimension that I think will probably end up being part of what we talk about, because it all kind of contributes to the identification of who I am and who that the mentee is, and what is it that they're trying, how are they growing in that area of wellness. Like all of that's so important too. So
Yeah.
I value that side of things as well.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you so much for this conversation, Tumi. I'm really glad that you are part of the team and that our mentees will get to work with you and experience what it's like to really grow with you and be in partnership with you. We're super happy to have you on the team. Thank you for the talk today. And for everyone listening, stay tuned for more, and glad to have you join us. Until next time, we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.